I am screaming, who is this person? Who had that type of evil in them?
We have to capture all of these surveillance cameras. It was an absolute chilling moment. Wasn't expecting that at all.
Holy cow, can't believe this is on video.
This guy is an absolute monster, and we're gonna get him.
"32-year-old luxury bag designer Stephen Gambles is working on his new collection.
Stephen was a very hardworking young man. He was so adventurous, and he was a born artist, literally. He would spend countless hours perfecting a bag, perfecting a stitch. If you're looking at a bag that Stephen made, it's as detailed as anything Louis Vuitton's gonna sell.
As a dad, to see my son creating and designing things, he was great at it. And so I applauded him. He was designing and making to start his own brand.
Hey, Mom.
How's my beautiful baby boy today?
Stephen called me that morning.
I've got some really good news.
He was like, man, Mom, I got this huge deal that I'm putting together. And you just wait. It's gonna be awesome.
Really? Tell me.
And he was so excited and literally glowing as he was talking to me. So I was just, as a mom, so proud.
Has Marcus arrived yet?
Marcus and Stephen, you know, they're brothers, they're best friends. They're each other's world. And Marcus came into town actually to renew his driver's license.
Mom, I gotta get going. I'm meeting a friend tonight.
He was gonna meet a friend at Benihana's, which is his favorite restaurant in the world. It was just his way, you know, the finer things of life.
Okay, take care. Love you lots.
Bye.
I said, I love you. He said, I love you too. I said, okay, I'll see you later. And he said, bye. And I said, no, Bo, we don't say bye. I'll see you later. He said, no, bye, Mom. I will never forget that.
I know 911 with that.
Hi, I think somebody got shot in front of the Benihana in Plano.
What's the address?
5800 Legacy Circle. I live there, but it's the mini mart where the Benihana is in Plano. I don't know if someone shot him.
Did you actually see it?
No, the car has crashed into the tree, and I think someone rolled by, shot him, and he drove off. Tell me what to do.
Okay, I need you to get by him and tell me if he's awake or if he's breathing.
No, he's dying. He's dying.
Plano police officers arrive within just a few minutes, and they find a white Mercedes sedan crashed into a tree. When they arrived, the vehicle was still running. They found a male in the driver's seat, slumped over. The airbags had deployed, but there was blood everywhere. They believed that he had suffered a gunshot wound to his temple, but somehow, miraculously, was still showing signs of life at that time. And the male was identified as Stephen Christopher Gambles, Jr.
As EMS rush Stephen to the hospital, Detective Aaron Benzik arrives on scene.
Having a shooting at the Shops of Legacy is unusual. It's a very safe place. It's filled with businesses, restaurants, corporations, places to live, and it's kind of the heart of our city. Upon my arrival to the crime scene, the first thing I'm seeing is that our patrol officers have a large scene taped off, and I see a white Mercedes that has crashed into a tree. Inside, I can see a large amount of blood. I can see an orange hat laying on the center console. And I see that there's damage to the front windshield and that something significant has happened inside of this vehicle.
Look at this.
Underneath the driver's seat, we do locate a cartridge casing from a spent round that came from a 9mm gun.
No firearm?
None.
We do not find any gun inside of the Mercedes when we're looking in it.
We're gonna need full forensics on this.
No, I need to call out our crime scene investigators, and they're gonna focus on looking for fingerprints. They're gonna swab inside the car for DNA. They're gonna swab outside the car for DNA. The shooting happened around 11:23 p.m. and the area is starting to slow down about that time on a Wednesday night. However, there were several witnesses that were lingering around and we were able to follow up with.
Did you see what happened here tonight?
I did identify a witness who had actually been walking by the Mercedes when the gunshot went off. He saw a subject approach the driver's side window of the Mercedes. He was wearing a yellow reflective vest like a security guard, and that he thought he heard something along the lines of the security guard asking the driver of the Mercedes for a smoke. One witness identifies a black male. I wasn't able to find any witnesses who had a very clear view of the suspect's face, and I certainly didn't have any witnesses that could pick him out of a lineup.
Okay, thank you.
I know that this is a large area with multiple sources for surveillance video. Video could be really helpful for us to understand and see exactly the circumstances of the shooting. It helps us get to the clues faster. Based on looking where the vehicle had crashed into the tree, I believe that the car had come from a parking spot directly in front of the mini-mart.
All right, your camera's working? Yeah? I need to see him.
I spoke with a clerk who worked inside of the mini-mart. He allowed me quick access to a surveillance camera that he had inside of his store. There's so many different sources that we could get video from, and that's exactly why we have a team of digital media specialists that can respond to these scenes. I'm now thinking I've got to get Specialist Meyer involved in this.
We got to the mini mart. The owner had left us, basically said, y'all are gonna be here all night, use my store. Here's the camera system. The main view that we were able to use to see the most was actually inside the store, kind of overlooking the register. You could see out front to where people would be driving or parking in front of the store. And that was the best view that we had.
Okay, let's go back to about 8 p.m., see if we can spot the car. That's our clerk. No car. Well, that's the car. Okay, play it.
And at 8:59 p.m., a few hours before the murder, we can see Stephen's white Mercedes pull up and park directly here in front of the mini-mart. Just sits there for a moment.
What's he doing?
We're waiting. Who's going to be getting out of this car, or are they going to be meeting anybody?
Who's this?
At approximately 9:01 p.m., we do see a female approach the vehicle.
She walked up towards the car like she was waiting for someone, and then walked out of camera frame towards the restaurants around the corner.
We then see that one individual gets out of the Mercedes from the driver's seat.
Can you zoom in? Is it there?
He's wearing this orange cap and a white jacket, and this cap does look consistent to what I'd seen inside of the vehicle.
That's gotta be Steve. Keep playing.
I'm piecing together the timeline of Stephen. What time does he arrive? Who does he meet? Where does he go? Does he have any negative contacts that could have led to a conflict? The view from inside the mini-mart is pretty limited, so we're not able to see everything once the driver gets out.
It's just not a good angle.
My team's looking for other cameras. Let's see what they've got.
Specialist Meyer actually got access to a security camera from the property management outside of the mini-mart.
Hey, good news.
And it is covering and looking down exactly where the murder happened.
So this camera view showed what the mini-mart's cameras didn't.
Benzik and Meyer head to the property management office to review the camera footage.
Okay. Let's start when Steven gets out of the car.
We go to around 9:01 p.m. We're able to see that, yes, that is Steven who gets out of the driver's door of the Mercedes, and that he is, in fact, meeting the female associate who walked up earlier.
They were having a conversation, and then they walk off together out of camera view.
Rewind, freeze on her.
Was she the last person with Steven? Could she have had anything to do with Steven's death? Or could she just be a witness that could really help us with the investigation?
Okay, let's spin forward to the time of the 911 call, around 11 p.m.
About 2 hours later, about 11:10 p.m., we see Steven and the female associate approaching from the direction that they had walked off to.
Freeze it there.
She's carrying like a to-go cup and a to-go bag from a restaurant.
Keep playing.
They walk past Steven's car. They're comfortable with each other.
Let's take it to a few minutes just before the time of the 911 call.
There's about 13 minutes of time that elapsed before we then see Steven walking back to his car, and he's by himself this time. And he gets inside and shuts the door. And then just moments later, you do see an individual wearing a reflective security guard jacket, and he is approaching the car in the driver's side window. The security guard is intentionally trying to get Steven's attention. Steven does just roll down his window and talk to the security guard. The security guard then pulls a gun, steps towards him, and fires a single shot.
That's when he shot.
Steven's car, which must have been placed in drive by Steven prior, continues to drive forward and crashes into the tree. After that single shot is fired, the suspect turns and runs away.
Can you zoom in?
And you can see the word security on the back of his jacket. Holy cow, we've got a security guard gone rogue. What in the world would make him target this guy?
Benzik. Yep. Oh.
I did receive a phone call from the detective who was at the hospital. Steven Gambles had succumbed to his wounds.
Okay. Thank you. You didn't make it?
We're now working a homicide. The stakes are high now. Who is responsible for this murder? How do we go from a security guard patrolling the property to now murdering in cold blood? This doesn't make any sense at all.
While Benzik and Meyer work to identify the suspect, investigators visit Steven's home.
When detectives responded to the last known address for Steven Gambles, we made contact with his brother Marcus. Marcus had been visiting from out of town for the past few days. Steven's parents lived out of town. Marcus, he's immediately calling them.
Hey, Skrill, what's happening?
Skrill, that's the nickname I call him. I said, what are you doing? You know I'm at work. He said, Mom, no. He said, my brother is gone. My brother is dead. But of course, I lost it. What on earth are you talking about? Because I just talked to Steven.
So I could tell in his voice that it was something catastrophic. So immediately I'm on the way, I catch a flight, but I want to know what had happened to my son.
Investigators work on tracing the security guard in the surveillance footage.
We have a suspect wearing the security guard jacket. So I'm focusing, could this be as simple as the security guard who is assigned to this neighborhood is in fact the person who committed the offense? I reach out to the officers who work in that neighborhood and I ask them, all right, is there a security company that works in this area? And they let me know that Gold Fortress Security does provide coverage in that area.
This is Detective Benzik, Plano PD.
And on the night Stephen was murdered, they did have a security guard working on the property. They identified the guard as Dominic Gatlin.
What time was that?
One of the logs indicated that shortly after 11 p.m., short time period before the murder, the security guard had checked in at a business about 100 meters from where the murder happened.
But police were unable to locate the security guard when they arrived on scene.
When did you last speak to him?
And we had the supervisor for Gold Fortress Security call out to that security guard and ask, hey, why aren't you out on property? The police are there, there's been a shooting, we can't find you. And the security guard responded to us, hey, I left after 11 o'clock, and oh, by the way, I quit my job.
Thank you for your help.
Why would a security guard, knowing he's assigned to that property on camera, commit a murder? But we absolutely needed to find him. The logs put him in the area, and now he's telling the supervisor, I quit my job. Suspicious. Myself and Detective John respond to Dominic's residence. It was about 30 minutes away down in Dallas. He is the security guard who was supposed to be on the property.
Hello, sir. You Dominic Gatlin?
Yeah, I am.
One of our officers called you last night. Yeah. Did we have a word with you about what happened?
He was cordial. He came out and spoke to us.
I have nothing to do with nothing. I don't know nothing.
Okay.
I have no beef with nobody.
Okay. He denies knowing anything about the shooting, says that he didn't shoot anybody, and doesn't have any information for me in regards to who the shooter could be. I'm skeptical. I show him pictures of the surveillance video.
Oh man, I think I found you on video walking around, security guard out there.
No, that's not me.
He said he is not the suspect in this murder.
Next up might be this week, Monday and Tuesday. I went to work and actually clocked in, and then I stayed there for a couple hours and I left.
Dominic had been doing a fraudulent scheme against his employer. He had been taking the work phone, and he would take it home to him in Dallas, 30 minutes away, and he would use the phone to remotely check into locations at the property while actually not being there. He actually wasn't on the property when the shooting happened. At that point, I'm able to fully rule out Dominic Gatlin. He's not my suspect, and I don't know who they are at all. So we're back to square one. And that involves surveillance video. That is our best witness that we have at the moment of who the suspect is and where they could have gone.
Investigators reanalyzed the surveillance footage of the shooting for clues that could reveal the suspect's identity.
Hello, Detective.
Thank you.
While Stephen and his female associate dinner together at a nearby restaurant, I'm able to see a lot of movements of the suspect as he's walking around doing his fake patrolling.
There he is again.
Around 10:42 p.m., he approaches Stephen Gamble's car, finds it unlocked, and he actually gets inside of the vehicle. You can see him appear to take something from the center console area of the car and place that inside of his jacket.
What's he got?
I don't know.
Can you zoom in? Can you see what he's taking?
No.
Keep playing.
A minute goes by. We see the suspect get out of the car, and he starts walking around again. A period of time later, the suspect revisits the car, and we can actually see him open up the back door handle. And he gets fully inside of the back seat and closes the door.
What's he looking for?
I'm watching to about 11:10 p.m.
Oh, God.
And then I'm startled. I see Stephen and his female associate, and they start walking down the sidewalk, approaching the vehicle. It was an absolute chilling moment knowing that the suspect is in the backseat of Stephen's car. It's about a minute goes by, and we see the suspect get out of the backseat of the car. He then proceeds to continue kind of trolling around the property, fixated on Stephen. This very well could have been a double homicide and not just one person. And I was super thankful that Stephen took the time to walk that female to her car. It was clear that Stephen had spent some time with the female, and we hadn't been able to identify her yet in the investigation, so we absolutely needed to talk to her.
The call list on Stephen's phone reveals her name.
We were able to identify the female as Chantel Finch, and we were able to go speak with her in person.
I did want to just kind of go over something to see if you could be helpful with us on something, okay? And I want to see if you recognize anyone in this picture.
Yes,
Okay. What do you recognize in that picture?
myself, of course, absolutely, and Tim.
She did confirm that that was in fact her in the video. Chantel described her relationship with Stephen, said they'd been friends for about a year, and that they would frequently go out to dinner together.
See, do you remember that night?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Where did y'all go out to eat that night?
Benihana's.
Okay. Do you guys have any problems with anybody?
No,
Any conflict at all that night?
no, not between us, not with anybody else.
I did ask her if she had seen a security guard in the area.
I want to say I saw the attire, the outfit.
Okay.
I thought it was just, regular routine security, someone walk, doing their job.
And after they had dinner together, Stephen walked her to her car, and she went home. There's not any additional clues of conversations that they had, anyone else that they had talked to. So at this point, we decided to break the news to her that Stephen had in fact been murdered and was dead. It was absolutely clear that she had no involvement in the murder of Stephen Gambles and had no information to provide.
The following day, Stephen's family arrives at the police department.
On Friday morning, I was able to meet Stephen's parents, Phyllis and Stephen, in person.
Thank you for coming in today. Let me update you on our investigation.
To learn, not only is my son dead, but he was shot and killed by a person that doesn't even know him. There's nothing I can say. This is my baby.
He asked us, if we knew of anybody that had a beef with him or if anybody wanted to hurt him nobody.
I promise we will get justice for Stephen.
He said, I give you my word. I'm gonna find who did this.
Investigators switch gears. They gather the footage from dozens of surveillance cameras in a radius around the crime scene.
Surveillance video evidence is actually going to help us prove who the killer is. It's a very slow process of going through each of these cameras, eliminating possible paths, and realizing, okay, this path is the only path that the suspect could have gotten to. We'd see him fleeing on foot and believe he traveled north from the crime scene towards the area of apartment complexes.
Detectives secure the surveillance footage from the location.
Let's start just after the shooting and work our way back.
And all of a sudden, at 11:29 p.m., boom, we see a suspect running up the stairs to this complex. This could be the guy.
Okay, play that again. Freeze it, there.
The man's face isn't super clear on the camera, but I can tell that he is a black male. I can see that he had a backpack on his back. This man is wearing a black hoodie, he's wearing black shoes, but he's not wearing the security guard jacket and he's not wearing the black pants. Is this our killer? This timing of the suspect running up the stairs is absolutely matching the time that our killer would have made it to that area. I'm extremely elated at this moment. This person that I'm seeing on the camera, wow, this could be my suspect.
This person wasn't wearing the security jacket, but did he dump the jacket somewhere? Is it folded up in his backpack? We just didn't know.
Zooming in.
I spent some time looking at the hoodie that the man running up the stairs was wearing, and I could recognize that it was a Thrasher brand hoodie, which is a unique look. I do remember that there was a black hoodie being worn by the suspect during the murder. This person that I'm seeing on the camera, wow, if this is the killer and he's running upstairs to a second floor apartment, that means earlier in the night, he would have had to come down these stairs.
Let's keep going back and see when he leaves the building.
So then we keep rewinding.
Play it back.
And then shortly after 9 o'clock, oh my gosh, Eureka. We see a subject coming down the stairs. He's wearing a yellow security guard jacket. It is the jacket that our killer is wearing later in the night.
That's gotta be him.
And at this moment, I know I have my killer identified on video.
Can you bring up the guy running up the stairs?
Absolutely.
He also has a backpack that has a distinct look to it, which matches the backpack that I see the man running up the stairs at 11:29 p.m. So what I'm understanding at that point is that we don't see the killer with the backpack on when the murder happens. It's highly likely that the suspect placed the backpack underneath the security guard jacket to alter his appearance.
Who is this guy?
At this point, I'm 100% confident that I have the killer on camera and that it is the same person running up the stairs wearing the Thrasher hoodie at 11:29 p.m. But putting a name to the killer is an absolute critical part of this investigation.
Investigators checked the police database for any recent contact between the building's residents and law enforcement. They discover a report of an altercation between a resident and her boyfriend.
We identified from that police report that a Jordan Jacobs had been connected to a domestic incident inside that building, along with the female Jasmine Brooks.
Can we see them?
Yep.
We're taking a look at what do they look like. Are they consistent with the person we see in the multiple surveillance videos?
Nice work.
Myself and Specialist Meyer continue. What else can we learn about people inside the building?
What's that? Play it.
At 8:56 p.m., 2 hours before the murder happened, we see a male and a female walking down the stairs.
Freeze it.
We see that the male is wearing a black hoodie.
Keep playing.
10 minutes later, the surveillance camera captures the same couple and their dog as they return to the apartment building.
They're back.
The male is wearing a Thrasher hoodie. He appears to look directly at the surveillance camera.
Freeze it. Can you zoom in on his face?
Mm-hmm.
From that camera view with the male looking directly at the camera and the information that I had about research on Jordan Jacobs, I can definitively say he is Jordan Jacobs.
Investigators search for clues that connect Jordan Jacobs to Stephen's murder.
We learned that he and his girlfriend had prior employment for a company called Trident Security, and they provided pictures of the jackets that their officers wear. We were able to see that the surveillance video security guard jacket matched the actual Trident security jackets. Well, at this point, we're extremely confident Jordan Jacobs is our killer, but it still makes no sense. Why does he approach and kill Stephen Gambles?
I am screaming because I'm angry. Who is this person? Who came across my son and had that type of evil in them? He took Stephen's life.
As we're continuing to review the surveillance video, Jordan Jacobs and his girlfriend leave the apartment building for 10 minutes, several hours before the murder. And we're trying to focus, okay, where did they go during that time?
I think I've seen these two before. On the camera outside of the mini mart.
Let's play it.
Detective Jung actually makes the connection And I completely missed this, but she pointed out that, hey, there's a man wearing a Thrasher hoodie walking directly by Stephen Gamble's when he first arrived to the property earlier that night.
At 8:59 p.m., Jasmine Brooke enters the mini-mart, followed seconds later by Jordan Jacobs.
Incredible.
Jasmine and Jordan leave the store at 9:02 p.m. They walk towards Stephen Gamble's and his friend.
We now have our killer walking a few feet by Stephen Gamble's before he dies. It's still not answering the question of why did Jordan Jacobs go back and kill Stephen Gamble?
We've reviewed that footage a few times, looking for any kind of interaction between the two men. I don't even think there was a glance between them. They just passed each other.
We had our murderer on video the entire time and had no idea. My killer has a name. My killer is Jordan Jacobs, and we're gonna get him.
Plano PD SWAT swoops on the apartment building to arrest Jordan Jacobs.
We find him and his girlfriend, Jasmine Brooke, inside of a car in the parking lot. Our SWAT team is able to arrest Jordan Jacobs without incident. They take him into custody, and then he's transported to the Plano City Jail.
Can I confirm your first and last name? Jordan Jacobs. They say there's a warrant for my arrest. I haven't did anything or anything. They got me mixed up because of another Jordan Jacobs.
Jordan immediately wants me to know that, hey, this could be some possible mix-up. He's had problems with other people using his name before, Jordan Jacobs, and maybe this is all just a big misunderstanding. And I know that's not the case.
You obviously recognize the female in the picture. Yeah. Okay. Who do you recognize that as? My girlfriend. That's your girlfriend. Okay. Do you recognize the person below in that picture? That's me.
And he right away identifies himself. That's me. That's my girlfriend. So I'm getting that first affirmative link between Jordan Jacobs and the surveillance video and getting him confirming that with his own words.
Do you recognize that picture? No. Okay. Do you recognize that jacket? I seen him walking around the apartment before. Like security. Do you own a jacket like this? No. No?
Jordan denies that he's wearing the security guard jacket, says it's not him. And I don't get in an argument back and forth on whether it is him or not because I already know at this point.
I've already identified that that's you wearing this jacket, walking around. I know it's you. I'm not doing that because I finished that part of the investigation.
I want to know what happened. Why did he kill Stephen Gamble's? What was said when Jordan approached that car?
You're just walking up to the side of the car. What happens? What's the dialogue? What is said, Jordan? What does this man tell you? Oh, he was asking for a cigarette. You want a cigarette?
And at that point in the interview, Jordan Jacobs acknowledged to me that he was in fact the killer because that information was consistent with what the witness had described. He described hearing the killer in the jacket talk to Stephen Gamble's asking for a smoke. And you can start to see Jordan Jacobs slowly kind of realize that they've got me, and his tone kind of changes.
John talking.
He says, I don't want to talk anymore. He's ending the interview. Detective Jung assisted in interviewing Jasmine Brooke and learning more information about what happened.
Do y'all go to that mini market
Oh, yeah,
over there? Do you remember the last night you went there?
Yeah. He got mad at me and left. Like, he made an argument up and left.
Did you remember what that argument was about?
I went to the store. It was a couple of weeks. Jordan's very jealous. So he's like, you have people looking at you and stuff. And I'm like, what, dude?
And she didn't understand why Jordan Jacobs was trying to insinuate that somebody was looking at her inappropriately. She didn't see it that way at all. When they got back to the apartment, Jordan Jacobs told his girlfriend, I'm gonna give that man something to look at. I'm gonna go rob that man. Now we're understanding why Jordan Jacobs put on that security guard jacket. He had a plan. She did not know that someone had been murdered or killed, and was extremely cooperative in the investigation. And we don't find anything indicating that Jasmine was part of the actual murder offense, and we don't charge her with any criminal offenses.
Investigators secure a warrant to search Jordan Jacobs' residence.
We don't find the security guard jacket inside the apartment, but we do find some items that are very helpful in the investigation. That distinct backpack that Jordan Jacobs wore before and after the murder, we do in fact find the black hoodie with the Thrasher logo on the front. We learned that Stephen Gambles kept a handgun inside of that car. He kept a 9mm pistol inside the center console of his vehicle. It's no longer there after Stephen Gambles is murdered. With the supporting surveillance video, you can see Jordan Jacobs appear to take something from the center console area of the car and place that inside of his jacket, which leads us to believe that Stephen was murdered with his own gun that he kept inside of that car. And forensically, we were able to identify Jordan Jacobs' DNA was on the handle of Stephen Gambles' car.
On September 26, 2022, Jordan Jacobs stands trial for the murder of Stephen Gambles. Prosecutors describe what happened that night.
So on Wednesday, July 7th, 2021, Stephen Gambles went to the shops at Legacy to meet a female, Chantel, for dinner. It was just after 9 p.m. But before they made it to dinner, he was parked outside the mini mart. It was then that the chance interaction happened where Jasmine Brooke and her boyfriend, Jordan Jacobs, arrived at the mini mart. Jordan Jacobs decided that Stephen Gambles had looked at his girlfriend wrong. It upset him. It put him in a jealous rage. And so what is he gonna do? But he is gonna make that man pay for a simple look that a stranger gave his girlfriend. Jordan Jacobs and his girlfriend return to their apartment. He changes his clothes. He puts on his yellow security jacket, and he puts on a black medical mask and pulls the hoodie close up over his head. For the next couple hours, Jordan Jacobs stalks that victim's car. He tries the door handles. They're unlocked. He ultimately finds the 9mm Glock that Stephen had legal access to in his vehicle. When Stephen Gambles returns to his Mercedes, he's sitting in the driver's seat for just a matter of seconds before that man in the yellow security jacket is at his window. You see Jordan Jacobs raise that gun in his hand, point it directly at Stephen Gambles' head, and shoot him execution style.
Jordan Jacobs is found guilty of capital murder. He receives a life sentence without parole.
These pieces all came together and painted a picture for us that would have been extremely challenging without surveillance video.
Stephen was 32. Parents shouldn't have to bury their children. I miss everything about seeing my kid. I believe that in my son's 32 years, he lived full and died empty. And that's what I want people to remember.
I have so many beautiful, wonderful memories of him that I cherish, I can live on and stew on for the rest of my life.
This is the last bag that Stephen gave me for when I turned 58. And you can see, when I say hand stitch, I'm talking physically stitching on a bag. I carry this bag every single day. Stephen is with me every day.
Next time on See No Evil.
Hi, I was wondering if I could have a welcome for my daughter.
There were cameras everywhere.
What those cameras captured really bring all those pieces of the puzzle together.
The night was heavy, sticky with the breath of Florida summer, when the first scream tore through the quiet suburban streets. Streetlights flickered like failing eyes, casting long shadows over the cracked sidewalks where children had played hours before. Nobody knew who had cried or why, only that something had gone terribly, irrevocably wrong. By the time the police arrived, the house at the end of Melrose Drive was silent, the front door ajar as if inviting the darkness inside. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of bleach and fear. Furniture overturned, drawers ripped open, papers scattered like the remnants of a life violently interrupted. And there, in the dim glow of a single swinging bulb, lay her, 27 years old, lifeless, eyes wide open, staring into a void that seemed to stretch into eternity. The neighbors whispered, some from behind drawn curtains, some over fences that had never felt higher, their words sharp with disbelief. How could this happen here? In our town? The community, tight-knit and trusting, was shattered in a single moment, and yet no fingerprints, no forced entry, no obvious suspect, just questions, endless questions. The investigation began that very night, detectives moving through the house like shadows themselves, notebooks in hand, cameras flashing, every photograph a fragment of the horror they were trying to make sense of. Outside, the street hummed with the hum of curiosity and fear. People peered from their windows, watching uniforms, flashing lights, and the occasional ambulance, the sirens cutting through the night like knives. And then the press arrived, hungry, relentless, turning private grief into public spectacle. Florida 2010 cold case, they typed, every headline a stab at understanding what seemed incomprehensible. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The local police dug through evidence, every corner of the house scrutinized, every neighbor interviewed, every call to emergency services logged and logged again. But the case remained stubbornly closed in mystery. There were no credible witnesses, only rumors. A dark car spotted near the street that night, an unfamiliar man seen at the grocery store days before, a phone call made and never returned. Each lead led nowhere, each clue dissolved into frustration. Detectives worked tirelessly, notebooks filling with hypotheses, timelines, and dead ends, each more confounding than the last. The victim's family, devastated and desperate, held press conferences that drew both sympathy and scrutiny, their grief laid bare for all to see, yet answers remained elusive. Community vigils lit candles along the sidewalks, small flames flickering against the humid Florida night, each light a fragile symbol of hope and remembrance. But hope was thin. Months stretched into a year, and still the perpetrator walked free. The pattern began to emerge only when other cases, eerily similar, were examined in the broader context of the state. Young women, last seen alone at night, their routines ordinary, unremarkable, until abruptly they vanished. Evidence was sparse, sometimes non-existent, leaving behind only the faintest echoes of their lives. Cold cases, forgotten by many, were revisited by a handful of detectives who refused to close the files without answers. These detectives, some seasoned veterans, some young idealists, pored over reports, connecting dots invisible to most. A car description here, a phone record there, a pattern of behavior that no one had noticed. And suddenly, what had seemed random began to take shape. The term serial offender was whispered in hallways, a word heavy with dread and implication, chilling even the hardened investigators. It wasn't confirmed, not yet, but the suspicion hung in the air, a shadow over every lead, a warning of darkness repeating itself. And then came the anomalies. Small, almost insignificant details that, when pieced together, refused to be ignored. A fiber found on a window latch, a fingerprint partially smudged, a neighborhood watch report that had been filed and forgotten. Each anomaly was a breadcrumb, and for the first time in months, the investigators felt a spark of direction. They retraced her last steps, from the coffee shop to the late-night convenience store, noting everything from security cameras to streetlights that had never worked properly. The trail was faint, but it existed, and the detectives followed it with the intensity of those who had nothing left to lose. They spoke with people who barely remembered the day, reconstructed conversations from memory, and re-examined items that had previously seemed mundane. A receipt, a taxi log, a forgotten jacket in a laundromat. Every detail became a clue, every interaction a potential key to unlocking the mystery. As the investigation dug deeper, the pressure mounted. The local community, once eager for quick answers, now hung in a state of anxious vigilance. Every stranger was eyed suspiciously. Every door left unlocked felt like an invitation to danger. Social media, still nascent in 2010 but growing fast, buzzed with theories, some plausible, most wildly speculative. The police navigating this minefield balanced the need for discretion with the public demand for information, releasing statements carefully worded to reassure without revealing too much. And all the while, the case remained unsolved, an open wound in the collective consciousness of the city. The family's anguish persisted. Holidays passed without closure, birthdays remembered with empty chairs, anniversaries shadowed by the knowledge that justice had not yet arrived. Yet, detectives refused to yield. They pored over forensic reports repeatedly, sending samples to labs, consulting experts from other states, anyone who might offer insight. They revisited old interviews, sometimes questioning witnesses for the third or fourth time, extracting fragments that had been overlooked. Patterns emerged in small doses: timing of disappearances, geographic clustering, the subtle but consistent behavior of the suspect. It was meticulous work, painstaking, sometimes maddeningly slow, but necessary. And all the while, the unknown predator continued to loom, unseen yet present in every corner of the investigation. The city held its breath, caught in the liminal space between fear and the faint hope of revelation, a tension so thick it could almost be felt as one walked the streets where the crimes had occurred. Then came the night of the breakthrough. A tip, seemingly minor, arrived from an unexpected source. It spoke of a vehicle, a pattern of travel, a name that had appeared in unrelated reports. At first it seemed a coincidence, another dead end, but the detectives, trained to see the connections where others saw randomness, pursued it relentlessly. They cross-referenced it with all available data, piecing together timelines, movements, and interactions. The pieces began to fit, the pattern coherent and undeniable. The suspect's profile emerged, a man who had blended into ordinary life, invisible in plain sight, whose facade of normalcy concealed a dark, repeating behavior. The realization hit with both relief and horror. Relief that there was finally a path forward, horror that the person responsible had evaded justice for so long, leaving a trail of pain behind. As dawn approached, the detectives prepared for the next step: verification, surveillance, evidence collection. The city, still unaware of the imminent revelation, moved through its morning routines, oblivious to the storm about to break. Families went to work, children to school, unaware that the shadow that had haunted their streets for years was about to be confronted. The weight of anticipation pressed on the investigators, every movement deliberate, every decision calculated. It was a delicate dance of timing, patience, and strategy, and all the while, the cold case of 2010, a wound frozen in time, began to thaw, its secrets reluctantly surfacing, promising answers that had been denied for far too long. The sun rose over Florida, burning through the sticky morning air, but the city felt colder than ever. The streets that had once seemed ordinary were now corridors of suspicion, each corner a potential hiding place, each shadow a silent witness. Detectives moved quietly, methodical, their eyes scanning every movement, every vehicle, every person who might slip unnoticed into danger. The tip that had sparked the breakthrough grew more urgent with each passing hour, each new piece of information reinforcing a picture that had been obscured for years. Names, dates, locations, once isolated details, coalesced into a map, a web of connections pointing toward a man whose life had seemed unremarkable to anyone who passed him in the grocery store, the coffee shop, or the strip mall parking lot. His presence had been a phantom, invisible and yet omnipresent in the quiet terror he had sown. The investigation intensified. Surveillance teams were deployed, cameras installed, and officers stationed at key points. They watched, they waited, and they documented every movement, capturing glimpses of a life that now seemed sinister in hindsight. Each minor infraction, each suspicious glance, each unexplained absence added weight to the profile they were building. Neighborhoods held their breath, unaware that someone who had blended seamlessly into their routines might soon be exposed. The detectives felt the tension like a physical weight pressing against their chests, reminding them that the wrong move could push the case back into darkness. They worked in silence, communicating in coded words, sharing glances that conveyed urgency, frustration, and determination. The clock ticked relentlessly, every second a reminder of the lives that hung in balance, the families that waited, the community that demanded answers. Every lead, no matter how tenuous, was pursued. Phone records were analyzed, tracking calls that led nowhere and others that revealed unsettling patterns. Credit card statements traced movements, receipts confirmed locations, and witness testimonies were cross-checked against the digital trail. The pieces of the puzzle began to align in ways that were both satisfying and horrifying. It was a man of habit, predictable yet careful, meticulous yet sloppy in ways that only the patient eye could detect. The detectives pieced together the nights he had chosen, the victims he had selected, the methods he had employed. Each revelation brought a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that they were closing in, dread at the scope of his actions and the years he had remained free. In the midst of the investigation, the community reacted in ways both supportive and paranoid. Parents held their children closer, eyes darting toward strangers on the street. Friends shared theories in hushed tones, their voices trembling with fear. Social media was alive with speculation, screenshots of news articles, shared memories of missing persons, and endless debates over who the perpetrator could be. The detectives ignored most of it, aware that false leads could derail their careful planning. Yet they could not escape the sense that the city itself was watching, waiting, aching for resolution. Inside the precinct, the tension was palpable. Officers hunched over desks, eyes glued to computer monitors, fingers flying over keyboards. Whiteboards were covered in names, dates, and lines connecting one piece of evidence to another, forming a chaotic map that, in the minds of the investigators, made perfect sense. Coffee cups piled high, the air heavy with the scent of late nights and relentless work. Each breakthrough was celebrated quietly, each setback absorbed with grim determination. They knew that the man they hunted was intelligent, patient, and dangerous. One misstep could allow him to vanish again, to return to the shadows where he had thrived for years. The detectives revisited old cases, comparing details that had previously seemed insignificant. A similar pattern of disappearances emerged in nearby counties, subtle enough that the connection had been missed at the time. They traced travel routes, habits, and social interactions, identifying overlaps that painted a broader, more chilling portrait. It became increasingly clear that they were not dealing with an isolated incident, but a methodical predator, someone who had learned to manipulate perception, evade detection, and exploit the blind spots of law enforcement. The term serial offender was no longer speculation. It was fact, etched in reports and whispered in hallways, a reminder of the darkness lurking behind everyday facades. Evidence collection intensified. Forensic teams revisited crime scenes, reanalyzing items with technology that had improved in the years since the original investigation. Fibers, fingerprints, and DNA samples were cross-referenced against databases, producing leads that had previously been impossible to uncover. Each discovery, no matter how small, felt monumental, another step closer to unveiling the man who had remained hidden in plain sight. Detectives conducted interviews with renewed vigor, probing old statements for inconsistencies, pressing witnesses for details overlooked in earlier questioning. Patterns of behavior emerged, moments that previously seemed trivial now illuminated the predator's routine, his choices, and his psyche. The public remained unaware of the precise nature of the progress, but the sense of anticipation grew. Local news outlets reported vaguely on developments in the cold case, never revealing the identity, never disclosing specifics. Community members speculated endlessly, their curiosity mingling with fear. The detectives, navigating this environment, maintained strict secrecy, aware that premature disclosure could compromise months, even years of painstaking work. Yet the detectives could feel the case closing in, a sense of inevitability building with each confirmed lead, each corroborated fact. Then came a lead that changed everything. A witness, previously overlooked, recalled seeing a vehicle parked near the victim's home the night of the disappearance. Details were sketchy, fragmented, but compelling. License plate partials, time frames, distinguishing features. Cross-referencing this information with other sightings revealed a chilling pattern. The vehicle had been seen at multiple locations, near multiple incidents, spanning years. It was the same vehicle, the same behavior, the same signature that linked disparate cases together. The detectives leaned into the pattern, their efforts redoubling. Surveillance footage, once blurry and inconclusive, was enhanced with new software, revealing subtle clues previously invisible to the naked eye. As they drew closer, the suspect's profile became unnervingly clear. A man in his 40s, nondescript in appearance, socially adept, blending seamlessly into ordinary life. His interactions were calculated, his movements precise, his awareness of law enforcement evident in the gaps and delays that had allowed him to evade capture for so long. Yet even as they pieced together his identity, uncertainty lingered. Every step toward confirmation required patience, evidence, and strategy. Missteps could allow him to disappear again, a ghost in a city now hyper-aware yet unaware of the true danger. Night fell over Florida once again, mirroring the darkness that had shrouded the case for nearly a decade. The city slept uneasily, unaware that the storm was near, that the culmination of years of investigation was within reach. Detectives worked tirelessly, preparing for the critical moment when the shadow that had haunted the city would finally be confronted. Every detail verified, every lead confirmed, every precaution taken. The sense of anticipation was nearly unbearable, yet it was tempered by professional focus. They understood that the final confrontation would not only bring closure to a cold case, but also expose the depths of deception, cunning, and cruelty that had remained hidden for far too long. And yet, even as the detectives moved with precision and resolve, the city itself held its collective breath. Families, neighbors, and friends went about their routines, unaware of the tension that threaded through the streets. Every street lamp cast a longer shadow, every passing car carried potential revelation. The weight of anticipation pressed on every mind connected to the case, the invisible threads of fear, hope, and anxiety intertwining to create a city suspended in suspense. And in that silence, that uneasy calm, the cold case of 2010, a wound frozen in time, prepared to reveal its secrets, each revelation more shocking, more compelling, and more horrifying than the last. The storm hit just before midnight, sheets of rain slicing across the asphalt like shards of glass, thunder echoing through the palm-lined streets. The sky seemed alive, electric, as if nature itself sensed what was coming. Inside the precinct, the detectives were silent, their faces lit by the pale glow of monitors. The suspect's name was finally on the board. Not a stranger, not an outsider, but a man who had lived among them for years. His job ordinary, his smile polite, his record clean. The kind of man who waved to his neighbors, who mowed his lawn on Sundays, who disappeared into crowds without leaving a trace. The kind of man no one ever suspects until it's too late. His name didn't matter yet. Not to the public, not to the cameras waiting outside. But to the investigators, it was everything. The missing link, the face behind the shadow. They had enough to justify the watch, enough to track his movements, but not enough to make the arrest. Not yet. They needed him to move, to make a mistake, to lead them where he thought no one could follow. The rain became their cover. Surveillance vans lined the street near his home, unmarked, quiet, engines humming beneath the storm. Detectives watched through rain-streaked windshields, eyes fixed on a small house with peeling paint and a flickering porch light. Inside, the man moved with the rhythm of routine, dishes washed, blinds closed, lights dimmed one by one. A creature of habit, predictable, almost comforting in his normalcy. Yet beneath that surface, something twisted coiled tight. The investigators felt it, an unspoken certainty that this was the man who had haunted their nights, the face that would finally end a decade of unanswered questions. Hours passed. Lightning flashed, illuminating the house in brief, haunting glimpses. And then, movement. The front door opened. The suspect stepped out, locking the door behind him, calm, casual, as if the world wasn't watching. He got into his car, the same dark sedan seen in multiple surveillance tapes, and pulled away. The tale began immediately, headlights off, distance maintained. Every turn, every stoplight, every hesitation recorded. The rain blurred the roads, the city a maze of reflections and uncertainty, but the investigators didn't lose him. He drove with purpose, turning onto back roads that wound toward the edge of town. The same route, they later realized, that led toward several of the original crime scenes. He parked at the edge of a wooded area, engine idling, lights off. Minutes passed. The detectives held their breath. The man opened his trunk. A flashlight flickered on, beam slicing through the rain. He carried something. A tarp, a shovel, what looked like a duffel bag heavy with unspoken weight. The team leader whispered into his radio, voice low, precise. "Hold position. We need eyes closer." A second car eased forward, tires crunching over gravel, silent except for the steady rhythm of rain. Through the lens, they caught a glimpse of his face, focused, expressionless, almost serene, as he began digging. The scene froze in time, each second an eternity. The rain fell harder, washing over the disturbed soil, over the man who seemed oblivious to everything but the hole he was creating. The detectives watched in stunned silence. It wasn't random. He knew this place. He had been here before. When the command finally came, it was quiet, final. "Move in." Flashlights pierced the darkness. Voices shouted. The man froze. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then he ran. Chaos exploded into motion. Officers shouted commands, their boots splashing through mud, their beams cutting through the trees. The suspect sprinted toward the road, slipping, falling, scrambling back to his feet. A gun dropped from his pocket, skidding across the ground. The pursuit was relentless, the rain a blur of motion and noise. When he was finally tackled, face pressed into the wet earth, he didn't struggle. He just whispered one sentence, so faint it almost vanished beneath the storm. "You're too late." Those words echoed long after he was cuffed and led away, soaked, silent, his expression unreadable. Too late for what? The detectives exchanged glances, unease settling in their stomachs. The hole he had dug was shallow, freshly turned, but it was empty. Nothing buried, nothing unearthed, just mud and mystery. Back at the precinct, the interrogation began before dawn. The man sat in the harsh white light of the interview room, water dripping from his clothes, his eyes distant. He answered no questions, offered no explanations. He stared straight ahead, the faintest trace of a smile tugging at his mouth. Detectives took turns, some calm, some confrontational, but nothing broke through. Hours stretched into exhaustion. Every time they asked about the victims, his expression flickered, not remorse, not fear, something else. Recognition, a memory too vivid to erase. When they searched his house, the horror multiplied. Locked drawers, hidden compartments, a small storage room behind a false wall in the garage. Inside, boxes filled with mementos, jewelry, photographs, scraps of fabric, even old driver's licenses, trophies from lives stolen and erased. Each item catalogued, each one a ghost brought back to light. The evidence was overwhelming, damning. And yet, among the items, something caught the investigators' attention. A map, carefully folded, with certain locations marked in red ink. Many matched known cases, some didn't. The realization struck like a blow. There were more. Victims still undiscovered, stories still untold. The case that had haunted Florida for over a decade was far bigger than anyone had imagined. This wasn't one tragedy, or two. It was a pattern of predation that spanned years, maybe decades. The man in custody was not just a suspect. He was a phantom that had threaded himself through the state's history of missing persons, vanishing before anyone had ever realized he existed. As dawn broke, news began to spread. Word leaked from anonymous sources. An arrest in the Florida 2010 cold case. Reporters gathered outside the station, microphones ready, cameras flashing, demanding names, details, confirmation. The department said nothing. Officially, it was still under investigation. Unofficially, the detectives were unraveling one of the darkest secrets the state had ever buried. The evidence was enough to charge him. Forensics matched fibers, DNA, and tool marks across multiple scenes. The patterns were undeniable, but the question lingered. What did he mean when he said too late? It gnawed at the investigators as they dug deeper, cross-referencing the red-marked locations, sending search teams to forgotten roads, swamps, and abandoned lots. Some led nowhere. Others led to shallow graves. One by one, the cold cases began to thaw. The suspect spoke only once more. Late one night, when the station was quiet, a young detective entered the room to check on him. The man looked up, eyes calm, voice low. "You think you found me," he said, "but you only found what I wanted you to." The detective froze. The words weren't a confession, they were a warning. By morning, he was gone. The cell door intact, the security feed corrupted, the hallway empty. No sign of forced entry, no alarm triggered, no explanation that made sense. The station erupted into chaos, disbelief turning to panic. It was impossible. And yet the chair where he had been sitting was empty. The Florida 2010 cold case, the case that had seemed finally solved, had just shattered open again. The news hit like an earthquake. The headline screamed, "Suspect vanishes after arrest, cold case reopened." The community, once on the edge of relief, plunged back into fear. The detectives, exhausted, humiliated, refused to quit. They swore they would find him, that justice would not slip away again. But somewhere in the humid Florida night, the man who had fooled them all was free once more, moving through the darkness like a ghost returning home. And as the rain began again, washing over the streets, over the lights, over the city that refused to sleep, the words whispered through every household, every conversation, every silent prayer. "You're too late." The city woke to sirens. Helicopters thundered overhead, their searchlights carving through the dawn fog. Roadblocks appeared on every major highway before sunrise, squad cars stationed like silent sentinels at every exit, every bridge, every intersection that might lead out of the county. The man who had vanished from a locked cell was now the most hunted individual in Florida. The headlines screamed panic. "Fugitive from the cold case. Florida serial killer escapes custody. Authorities in statewide manhunt." The name they had kept from the public was now everywhere. James Cole, 43 years old, former mechanic, no prior arrests, a man no one really knew, yet everyone now feared. His mugshot, pale and expressionless, stared from every television, every phone screen, every billboard hastily updated with "Wanted." The eyes, those same eyes that had stared through detectives in the interrogation room, now seemed to follow the city itself. And beneath the frenzy, a single question pulsed like a heartbeat. How? How had he escaped from a locked cell under constant surveillance? Theories swirled. Inside help, corrupted feeds, system failures, a second accomplice? None of them made sense. The footage was gone, corrupted beyond recovery. One moment he was sitting still, the next, static. And then nothing. The investigation turned inward. Officers questioned each other. Departments clashed. Fingers pointed. The chief called it an internal breakdown, but the detectives knew better. This wasn't coincidence. It was control. Whoever James Cole really was, he had planned this, not as desperation but as design. The boxes in his home, the trophies, the map, none of it random. It was choreography, precision, manipulation. Every discovery they thought was progress had been bait. The realization hit like cold water. He hadn't been caught. He had allowed himself to be caught. Outside, the panic spread. News vans lined the precinct gates, their cameras feeding a constant stream of speculation and fear. Florida's Phantom, they called him now, the man who vanished. Parents pulled children from schools, doors stayed locked, streets emptied at night. Rumors erupted. Sightings in nearby counties, abandoned vehicles, strange figures seen near rest stops and gas stations. Every call flooded the tip line, most false, all frantic. And through it all, the detectives refused to rest. They retraced every step. The cell block was clean, untouched, the door sealed, the logs intact, the hallway cameras, corrupted at the same time. power fluctuations in the grid. A coincidence, the technicians said. The detectives didn't believe in coincidence anymore. They pulled every record, every maintenance log, every name of every person who had stepped into the building that week. They found nothing, except one anomaly, a repair request filed under a false ID 2 days before the arrest, a contractor who didn't exist, a badge number that led nowhere. The realization chilled them. He hadn't escaped from the station. He had walked out with it, with help that had been planted long before they'd even found him. Someone had opened the door, erased the evidence, and vanished with him into the storm. And then came the first sign. 2 days later, 50 miles north, a patrol officer responded to an abandoned rest area along I-95. He found a car, a dark sedan, engine still warm, driver's seat empty. Inside, a single photograph, resting on the dashboard, protected under plastic. It showed one of the original victims. Written across it in red marker were 2 words, "You forgot." The photograph made the evening news within hours. The state went into lockdown. The FBI joined the case, task forces assembled overnight, every resource thrown at the chase. But Cole was always one step ahead, always unseen. Each new clue felt deliberate, too perfect, too staged, as if he were watching, waiting for them to follow the trail he had set. Days bled into nights. Detectives slept in their offices, their walls plastered with maps and photographs, the red strings multiplying like veins, coffee cups stacked high, tension thick enough to taste. They combed through years of missing persons cases, expanding the timeline, finding older crimes that fit his pattern too closely to ignore. The earliest one dated back to 1998, 12 years before the Florida cold case. The latest had occurred just months before his supposed arrest. They realized then that his crimes had never truly stopped. They had only shifted, evolved, and still, the phrase haunted them. You forgot. What had they missed? What connection had they failed to see? The lead detective, Ruiz, couldn't sleep. He replayed every interview, every photograph, every scrap of evidence, searching for the thread that tied them all together. It came to him in the quiet hours, when exhaustion blurred logic and intuition took over. The map, the one found behind the false wall. Every location they'd already searched had revealed something, but not the ones left unmarked. What if the red circles weren't where he had been? What if they were where he wanted them to go? They drove out before dawn, Ruiz and 2 other detectives, into the wetlands beyond St. Johns County. The air was heavy, still, the ground soft beneath their boots. They found nothing at the coordinates, no bodies, no sign of human presence. Just an old structure, sunken and forgotten, a storm shelter long abandoned. Inside they found a table, and on that table, a phone. It began to ring the moment they stepped inside. Ruiz froze. The ringtone, an old melody, hauntingly cheerful, out of place in the silence. He answered without thinking. Static filled the line, then a voice, calm, deliberate, unmistakable. Detective Ruiz, James Cole said. You finally found it. The detective's breath caught. Where are you? Cole chuckled softly. Closer than you think. You've been looking in the wrong direction. Before Ruiz could respond, the call ended. The phone screen flickered, then died. The room fell silent again, except for the low hum of insects and the distant rumble of thunder. Ruiz stood motionless, staring at the lifeless device. He knew deep down the voice hadn't been a recording. He had been there, watching, listening. They rushed the area, called for backup, combed every inch of the property, the nearby roads, the woods. Nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, no trace of another person. Only the echo of the voice that shouldn't have been possible. Back at the station, technicians analyzed the phone. No SIM card, no power source. It shouldn't have worked at all. The case spiraled into something beyond logic, beyond procedure. The media devoured every rumor. Is the Florida killer playing a game? Police haunted by voice of fugitive. Each headline louder, more frantic than the last. And still, he remained invisible. Then came the next message. A letter, postmarked 3 days earlier, arrived at the precinct addressed directly to Ruiz. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small flash drive. The paper read only, You're following the noise, not the signal. The flash drive contained footage, grainy, low-light surveillance from the night of his arrest, but not from the police cameras. From inside the interrogation room, filmed from an angle no one knew existed. The footage showed Ruiz himself standing over the suspect asking questions. In the background, a faint reflection in the glass. Another figure watching. Same build, same eyes. James Cole standing outside his own interrogation room, observing himself. The video ended abruptly. The precinct fell silent. No one could explain it. The timestamps matched the original recordings. The reflection was clear. And the voice on the tape, faint, almost whispering, repeated the same phrase he'd said the night of his escape. "You're too late." The room erupted. Some called it doctored, others impossible. But Ruiz knew better. He felt it in his bones. They weren't chasing a man anymore. They were chasing an idea. A ghost built from the fragments of the city's fear. A predator who understood not just how to kill, but how to haunt. That night, Ruiz stood alone in his office, staring at the evidence board. The rain tapped the window, the lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. He whispered the words he'd heard too many times, the ones that now felt like prophecy. Too late, and outside, in the blur of streetlights and shadows, someone was watching. By morning, the manhunt had become an operation of military scale. Every agency in Florida was mobilized. State troopers, marshals, FBI, even Border Patrol units sweeping the edges of the Everglades. The city that once whispered about the cold case now lived inside it. Helicopters roared across the skyline, convoys of black SUVs sped down the interstate, and digital billboards flashed a single name above the traffic: James Cole, armed and dangerous. In the command center, a converted gymnasium humming with generators and screens, Detective Ruiz stood before a wall-sized map of Florida. Dozens of pins marked suspected sightings, vehicle recoveries, and reports. Each new update came through a headset. Voices overlapping, urgent, tired. The air buzzed with caffeine and frustration. Nothing held. Every lead dissolved under scrutiny. "Cole's playing the grid," Ruiz muttered, tracing his finger along the map. "He's not running, he's circling." The others stared. The data backed him. Every confirmed sighting formed a loop. Counties connected by highways, rest stops, small towns, back to where it began. He was still here, still close. They brought in analysts from Quantico, specialists in pattern behavior, logistics, and fugitive tracking. One of them, a young woman named Jensen, stood over the data feed, scrolling through cell tower pings, vehicle movements, and fuel purchases. Her voice was calm, detached, cutting through the noise. He's not using cards, not phones, not digital trails, but someone's moving money for him. "Look here." She pointed to a series of ATM withdrawals scattered across the state, all under different names, all within the same 20-minute window. "He's got help, at least 2 people." The revelation sank like a stone. Inside the room, silence thickened. If Cole wasn't alone, the danger multiplied. Outside, the media frenzy fed on every whisper. News anchors speculated about accomplices, inside networks, conspiracies. Talk shows aired blurry photos, each claiming to capture him in a crowd, at a gas station, outside a diner. None were real, but fear didn't care about proof. That night, a fresh lead broke open. A freight yard in Jacksonville reported a break-in. One of the long-haul trailers had been opened, its security seal sliced cleanly, its interior emptied. Among the missing items, industrial-grade cleaning agents, gloves, duct tape, and a box of disposable phones. A security guard reported seeing a man leaving in a service van just before dawn. Partial plate, state-issued maintenance decal. It matched one of the fake contractor IDs found during the station breach. Ruiz and Jensen rode north immediately, the highway a blur of rain and flashing lights. When they reached the yard, the air smelled of diesel and rust. The guard repeated his story, calm voice, steady eyes, but something in his tone unsettled Ruiz. Too rehearsed, too certain. When asked for the sign-in sheet, he hesitated, then produced it. Clean handwriting, no smudges. The name, Coleman James. The alias almost mocking in its simplicity. Forensics swept the trailer, pulling prints, footprints, tire marks. The tracks led only a few hundred feet before vanishing into the muddy runoff. But there, half buried near the drainage ditch, a single clue, a broken piece of mirror glass, its edges wrapped in duct tape, a faint trace of blood along the rim. It was sent to the lab immediately. Back at the command center, Ruiz watched the footage again and again. Grainy surveillance from the freight yard, each frame analyzed until the pixels broke apart. A silhouette, broad-shouldered, wearing a hood. The stride was distinctive, confident. Jensen leaned over his shoulder. That's him. Ruiz didn't answer, he already knew. The next day, the lab confirmed the blood sample. DNA match, victim from 2010. The room went silent. The implication was immediate and devastating. Cole had revisited the evidence. He wasn't running from them. He was dismantling the past, piece by piece. Orders went statewide. Search perimeters expanded. Every rest stop, warehouse, and construction site checked. But Cole stayed invisible, always a few steps ahead. Each time they arrived, they found the same signature. Open locks, stripped wires, fragments of mirrors, and a faint chemical smell that clung to the air like ghost perfume. By the end of the week, the team was running on fumes. Reporters cornered officers in parking lots, demanding answers, throwing out accusations of incompetence, cover-ups, conspiracy. Ruiz ignored them all. He knew what the cameras wanted. A villain, a face, a confession. But all he had were footprints that vanished and an absence that grew larger every hour. One evening, Jensen walked into the operations tent holding a printed photo. It was from a gas station security camera in Lake City, time-stamped 3 hours earlier. A man, cap pulled low, paying cash at the counter. The angle was terrible, the lighting worse, but the posture, the tilt of the head, the stillness of the shoulders, was unmistakable. Cole. He was alone. Within minutes, tactical units were airborne. Ground teams moved into position. The gas station was sealed within the hour. But when they entered, the cashier was gone. The register empty, the camera feed offline, and on the wall, written in dust with a single finger, were the words, "Round 2." The phrase hit Ruiz like a punch. It wasn't taunting, it was scheduling. He wasn't finished. That night, Ruiz gathered his core team. 5 detectives, exhausted but resolute. They studied the timeline, cross-referenced logistics, mapped every resource Cole had used. The van, the fake badges, the accomplices, the cash flow. Bit by bit, the pattern formed. He was moving south again, toward the coast, retracing his old routes, toward the site of the original murder. The decision was instant. No waiting for authorization, no hesitation. They packed gear, loaded unmarked vehicles, and hit the road before dawn. The air was thick with humidity, fog crawling low across the asphalt. The drive was silent, each mile heavier than the last. Ruiz's hands stayed clenched on the wheel, knuckles white. He could feel it, the gravity of unfinished business pulling them home. They arrived at Melrose Drive just after sunrise. The house where it all began was still there, boarded, forgotten, paint peeling from the walls. The grass tall, the windows blind with dust. Ruiz stepped out, the smell of damp wood and salt air filling his lungs. The others fanned out, flashlights cutting through the gray light. Inside, everything was frozen in time. Furniture draped in tarps, yellow tape curling with age. In the corner of the living room, a faint indentation in the floorboards where the body had once lain. Ruiz knelt, fingers brushing against it. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of the case not as duty, but as burden. Every decision, every sleepless night, every unanswered question had led here. Then Jensen's voice broke the silence. "Detective, you need to see this." She stood near the doorway, holding up a clear plastic bag. Inside, a small black flip phone, dusty but functional. A piece of masking tape across the back read, in neat block letters, RU1Z. Ruiz took it, pulse spiking. He opened the phone. The screen lit. One message, no sender. "You said I was circling. You were right." Before anyone could react, the phone vibrated again. An incoming call. Ruiz hesitated, then answered. Static hissed, followed by a calm, steady voice. "Welcome back, Detective," said James Cole. "I wondered how long it would take." The line went dead. For a moment, no one moved. The house was silent again, except for the distant hum of cicadas outside. Ruiz stared at the phone, the message still glowing faintly on the screen, the reality sinking in like a stone through water. He wasn't chasing James Cole anymore. James Cole was waiting for him. The house fell into silence after the call, a silence so heavy it felt like it had weight. Ruiz lowered the phone, staring at the dim blue glow of the screen until it faded to black. No number, no trace, just his own reflection staring back, eyes hollow, jaw tight, face older than he remembered. Behind him, the team waited for orders that didn't come. Nobody spoke. They could all feel it. Something had shifted. The hunter had become the mark. Jensen broke the quiet. He knew you'd come back. Ruiz didn't answer. He slipped the phone into an evidence bag, sealed it, and handed it to her. Run it, every bite. But now, outside, the sky was starting to burn with early light, the first rays slicing through the clouds like blades. The neighborhood, once the center of a nightmare, was waking up again. Joggers passing, sprinklers hissing, life pretending not to notice the ghosts still walking among them. Ruiz leaned against the squad car, staring at the house. The porch sagged, the shutters hung loose. He remembered standing there 15 years ago when the case was fresh, when the air had been alive with urgency and promise. They'd thought answers were hours away. They'd been wrong. He could still feel that night in his bones. The smell of rain and electricity, the metallic taste of failure. "Detective," one of the younger officers said, walking up carefully. "Forensics is sweeping the perimeter. We found footprints near the side fence, fresh." Ruiz's eyes lifted. "Boots?" "Work boots. Size 11, deep tread." Cole's size. They followed the tracks down a slope behind the house, through the wet grass and into the overgrown trail that led to the canal. The prints were uneven, fading where the ground turned to mud. And then, at the water's edge, a single mark. The heel pressed deep, a pause before stepping off, as if he had stopped to look back. Jensen joined him, squinting against the glare of the morning sun. "He's watching us." Ruiz didn't respond, but he knew she was right. Cole wasn't running. He was watching, studying, waiting for the next move. By the time they returned to the command center, the phone analysis was already in progress. A technician sat hunched over multiple monitors, decoding signal logs and timestamp data. "It's old tech," the man said. "Analog signal, no GPS, no digital trace. But the call?" He paused. "What about it?" "It wasn't routed through a tower." Ruiz frowned. "Meaning?" "Meaning it didn't come from a phone. It came from a local repeater. Someone hijacked the frequency." Jensen's voice was a whisper. He called from nearby. Ruiz felt the pulse in his neck tighten. The message wasn't a taunt. It was proximity. Cole was here, in the same county, maybe closer. And that meant everything from this point on was theater. Every move they made, every conversation they had, he was probably already listening. Hours blurred. Reports flooded in, possible sightings, stolen vehicles, a maintenance worker missing since dawn. Ruiz moved through the chaos like a man half dreaming, his body in motion but his mind elsewhere, replaying every word of the phone call, every pause, every breath. The calmness of Cole's voice lingered, no anger, no mockery, just control. The tone of someone who had already written the ending. That night, Ruiz stayed long after the others had left. The map wall glowed in the dim light of the monitors, hundreds of pins stabbing into it like wounds. He traced the line of Cole's movements again, county to county, city to city, looping back each time. There was rhythm to it, not chaos, not randomness, a sequence, the kind of deliberate repetition that meant something. Jensen returned quietly, holding 2 coffees. "You're not going to sleep, are you?" "Sleep doesn't help when the enemy's awake." She hesitated, then set the cup beside him. "You think he's here for you?" Ruiz gave a faint, humorless smile. "He's been here for me since the day we opened that case." The monitor beeped, a new hit. A 911 call had just come in from a motel 2 miles away. A room left open, television still running, bathroom light flickering. Inside, a single envelope, taped to the mirror. On the front, written in black marker, one word: detective. They moved fast, sirens cutting through the night, lights painting the palm trees red and blue. Ruiz entered the room first. It smelled of dust, bleach, and something faintly metallic. The envelope was still there, untouched. Inside, a photograph. Grainy, black and white. It showed Ruiz himself, standing outside the command tent earlier that morning. The angle was low, the frame steady. It had been taken from a distance, but not far. On the back, a line written in neat script. "You see patterns, I see cycles." Jensen stared at it, her throat dry. "He's documenting us." Ruiz nodded slowly. "He always has." The motel clerk, pale and trembling, said the man who'd rented the room used cash, no ID, and left minutes before they arrived. "Quiet guy," the clerk muttered. "Said he was in town for work." Ruiz looked around the room again. The television still flickering with static, the sheets perfectly folded, not a single fingerprint on the remote. Every inch of the place felt sterilized, controlled, like a stage set for one purpose: message delivery. Back at the command center, Ruiz pinned the photo to the board. Beneath it, he scribbled 3 words: control, observation, cycle. Then he circled them, hard, until the pen tore through the paper. Days passed, leads multiplied and died. Cole's trail remained smoke, visible for a second, then gone. But through every false lead, every dead end, Ruiz began to notice something subtle: the timing, the spacing between events, the rhythm. 3 days between appearances, 5 between messages. A pattern of escalation. Cole wasn't just reacting, he was pacing, like a conductor raising a baton before the final movement. Ruiz's exhaustion deepened into something colder, a clarity sharpened by obsession. He spoke less, slept less. The team noticed. Jensen especially. One night, she found him sitting alone in the parking lot, cigarette burning low between his fingers, staring at the floodlights across the lot. "He's breaking you down," she said quietly. Ruiz didn't turn. "He's teaching me how he thinks. And when you know, then I'll stop him." She exhaled, the sound almost a sigh. "That's what he wants you to believe." The days bled into each other. The team rotated, reports stacked high, phones rang without pause. Ruiz stayed at the center, unmoving, as if time had stopped around him. He studied maps, reports, even weather data, anything that could give shape to Cole's cycle. Until finally, one thing clicked: the dates. Every reappearance aligned with an anniversary, not of the murders, but of the original investigation. Press briefings, warrant signings, public announcements. Each date tied back to Ruiz himself. The realization was ice in his veins. It was never about escape. It was about choreography. Every move Cole made was anchored to Ruiz's own timeline, a mirror reflection of his career. 15 years of shadow. That night, Ruiz returned to the old house alone. He didn't tell Jensen, didn't call backup. He just drove. The streets were empty, the air thick with the static hum of distant thunder. The house loomed like memory, dark, silent, waiting. Inside, it was exactly as they'd left it. Dust hanging in the flashlight beam like drifting ash. Ruiz walked to the living room, the boards creaking under his feet. He stood over the same spot where the body had been found 15 years ago. The same spot where Cole's message had started it all. He spoke into the silence, voice steady. "You wanted me here. I'm here." No answer, just the slow whisper of wind through broken shutters. Then, from somewhere deep inside the house, a sound. Soft, metallic, the faint click of a door latch. Ruiz turned toward the hallway, flashlight slicing through the dark. The beam caught movement, a shadow crossing the doorway, slow, deliberate. His hand hovered over his holster, but he didn't draw. He just listened, the sound of breathing, the rhythm of footsteps. Then nothing, only his own pulse hammering in his ears. He spoke again, quieter now. "You're not hiding anymore, are you?" Still silence. But somewhere unseen, someone was smiling. The flashlight flickered once, then steadied. On the far wall, written in dust too fine to notice before, a single phrase glowed under the beam. "See you soon." Ruiz exhaled, slow, controlled. The message wasn't for the department, it wasn't for the cameras, it was for him, a personal countdown. And as he stepped out of that house, dawn bleeding into the horizon, he knew something with grim certainty. The case was no longer cold. It was awake. The next morning began with silence, not the kind that follows calm, but the kind that follows realization. Ruiz woke in the station office, the blinds half open, the desk covered in files. He hadn't meant to sleep, but exhaustion had taken him mid-thought. The sunlight sliced through the dust in thin, sharp lines, catching on the map pinned across the wall, a mosaic of obsession. Every pin, every photograph, every red string stretched between them like veins feeding a single living thing. Cole. The phone buzzed once. A private number. No message this time, just a single vibration. Then nothing. Ruiz stared at it for a long moment, feeling the familiar chill trace up his spine. Cole was moving again, tightening the loop. By noon, the precinct hummed with tension. Reports came in from neighboring counties, abandoned vehicles, false sightings, phone pings that led nowhere. Ruiz listened, nodded, and gave orders that barely registered. His mind was elsewhere, back at the house, back at the whisper on the phone. Then Jensen stepped in, holding a printed email. "It came through the tip line," she said, "encrypted. We traced it to a relay network. Can't find the original source." Ruiz took the page. The message was short. "Detective, you talk to everyone but me. Let's fix that." Below it, a time, 9 p.m., and an address. A library, closed for renovation since the pandemic. Jensen's voice was careful. It could be a trap. Ruiz's eyes stayed on the page. Of course it's a trap. Then why go? He folded the paper neatly. Because he asked politely. That night, the city was drenched in humidity, the kind that sticks to your lungs. The library stood alone at the end of an empty street, a massive dark shape outlined against the faint glow of street lamps. Scaffolding wrapped around its sides like a cage. No lights, no sound, just the quiet buzz of a dying power line. Ruiz parked 2 blocks away and walked. No radio, no backup. Just his sidearm, his badge, and the old phone sealed in a plastic evidence bag in his pocket. The one that had started this. When he reached the doors, they were unlocked. He stepped inside. The interior smelled of dust and old paper, the scent of forgotten years. Shelves stood like tombstones, covered in plastic. In the center of the room, a single lamp glowed, its cone of yellow light illuminating a table. On it, 2 chairs, and a small cassette recorder. Ruiz's footsteps echoed softly on the marble floor. He approached the table, every instinct alive, every breath measured. The tape recorder clicked once, then began to play. A voice, calm, steady. "Detective Ruiz, you came alone. I respect that." Ruiz froze. It wasn't a recording. The voice came from the shadows behind the stacks. "Step out," he said. And then from the darkness, James Cole emerged. He looked ordinary. Average height, thin, clean-shaven, dressed in neutral clothes that would blend into any crowd. Nothing about him shouted danger, except the stillness. The kind of stillness that didn't belong to normal men. His eyes were sharp, observant, but not angry. There was something worse, composure. Ruiz spoke first. "You've been running 15 years. Cole tilted his head slightly. "I never ran, you just never caught up. You killed 5 people. I corrected 5 mistakes." Ruiz's voice hardened. "You think this is control? Hiding, taunting, leaving messages?" Cole smiled faintly. "Control is when I decide how the story ends." They stood across the table from each other, the lamplight cutting a clean line between them. 2 men bound by a single thread, one chasing justice, the other chasing meaning. Ruiz leaned forward slightly. "You could have vanished. You could have disappeared forever. Why come back?" Cole's eyes flicked toward the recorder. "Because unfinished stories haunt me." "You came back to taunt the police?" "I came back to finish you." The words hung in the air, heavy and calm. Ruiz didn't move. He could feel his pulse but kept his voice level. "You think this is about me?" Cole's expression barely changed. "You made it about you. Every headline, every briefing. Detective Ruiz leads investigation. You wanted the story to end with your name. I'm just giving you that." For the first time in years, Ruiz felt something colder than fear, recognition. Cole wasn't insane. He was deliberate. Every move calculated, every word a needle finding its mark. Ruiz took a step closer. "You left evidence behind. Mistakes. You wanted to be found." Cole shook his head. "No, I wanted to be remembered. He gestured toward the map folded in Ruiz's pocket. You built a shrine to me, detective. Don't pretend it wasn't admiration. You've thought about me longer than anyone alive. I'm the only part of your life that stayed consistent. Ruiz's jaw tightened. You're wrong. Am I? Cole's voice softened, almost sympathetic. When you close your eyes, who do you see? The victims or me? The silence that followed was suffocating. Ruiz stepped around the table, close enough now to see the faint scars on Cole's wrists, evidence of old restraint, or maybe his own kind of penance. You want credit for terror, Ruiz said quietly, but you're just a coward who hides behind ritual. Cole smiled again, smaller this time. And you're the believer who gave that ritual meaning. They stood inches apart now, two reflections divided by purpose. Ruiz could smell the faint trace of dust and metal on Cole's clothes, the scent of old rooms and careful planning. Cole's voice dropped to a whisper. You ever wonder why I called when I did? Why I waited this long? Ruiz didn't answer. Because I wanted to see if you'd still recognize yourself when you found me. He leaned forward slightly. Do you? For a moment, Ruiz said nothing, then quietly. I recognize the line between us. You crossed it. I never will. Cole's smile faltered, the first crack in composure. He studied Ruiz for a long moment, then looked down at the table. Maybe. But you followed me into the dark, detective. You had to. The sound of distant thunder rolled across the city, a low vibration through the empty building. Cole glanced toward the window. They'll come soon. You called them, didn't you? Ruiz didn't answer. Cole nodded as if confirming his own thought. Good. Then this ends clean. He stepped back, just beyond the lamplight, his face fading into shadow again. When they ask how it happened, tell them this. I didn't lose. I arrived. The moment stretched. Ruiz didn't reach for his weapon. He didn't move at all. He just watched as Cole disappeared between the stacks, silent as breath, until only the sound of the old lamp buzzing filled the air. Seconds later, floodlights exploded through the windows. Tactical units stormed in, shouts echoing through the hall. Ruiz didn't speak. He just stood there, staring at the empty chair across the table, the tape recorder still running. The officer nearest him called out, Detective, where is he? Ruiz looked at the recorder, then slowly pressed stop. The tape inside spun once, then clicked. He was never running, Ruiz said quietly. He was waiting. And as the lights flashed against the glass, the weight of 15 years settled like dust on the floor. The cycle had closed, but nothing about it felt finished. The library became a flood of motion, boots, radios, lights cutting through the dark. Officers moved like ghosts between the aisles, clearing room after room with mechanical precision. But there was nothing left to find. No movement, no footprints, no trace of Cole. The air still smelled of old dust and ozone from the flashlights. Ruiz stood at the center of it all, the single lamp on the table now surrounded by chaos. The recorder sat where he'd left it. The tape inside had stopped halfway through. Detective, perimeter clear, someone called. No suspect, another voice echoed. We've got an exit at the rear. Unlocked, leads to the maintenance tunnels. No cameras down there. Ruiz didn't look up. He just stared at the chair across from him, the faint outline of where Cole had been sitting minutes earlier. Jensen approached, breathless, holding a radio. We've got units covering the tunnels, but they split into 6 directions. It's a maze down there. If he planned this... He planned everything, Ruiz said. His voice was calm, too calm. The sound of the rain began to filter in through broken windows, a low, rhythmic tapping. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time. The city seemed to pulse with it. Ruiz finally looked up, eyes hard. Seal every tunnel, every grate, check the water system, power lines, old subway access. He's not gone. He's close. Jensen hesitated. Sir, you need rest. You've been awake. He cut her off. Do it. When she left, Ruiz turned back to the recorder. He pressed play. Static. Then Cole's voice again, faint but clear. You see now, detective? We don't solve each other. We mirror each other. Ruiz let the words hang. The tape ended in silence. He felt it then, a flicker of something unfamiliar. Not fear, not relief. Something colder, like understanding. By dawn, the building was empty again. The evidence team packed up the last of the boxes, and Ruiz watched them load them into the van. The city was waking up beyond the police tape. Reporters gathering, lights flashing, questions multiplying. Ruiz gave no statements. He walked to his car, sat behind the wheel, and closed his eyes. The rain drummed against the windshield in slow, uneven patterns. Cole was gone, but he had left something behind, a feeling, a map without coordinates. 3 days later, the first package arrived. No return address, postmarked from Jacksonville. Inside, a small wooden chess piece, the Black King. On the bottom, carved with something sharp, "Your move." Ruiz stared at it under the fluorescent light of the evidence room. The officers around him waited for instructions, but none came. He placed the piece in a bag, labeled it, and said only, "Log it." By evening, news of the library meeting had leaked. Florida cold case explodes into psychological standoff, the headlines read. Detective meets suspect in eerie face-off, but killer vanishes. Every outlet called it a failure. Some called it a myth. Others said Cole never existed, that the voice, the sightings, the clues were all fabrications born from obsession. Ruiz didn't respond to any of it. But at night, he replayed the recording, again and again, searching for a sound, a breath, a shift, a background noise that could tell him where Cole had gone. Each time, the silence felt heavier. On the 5th night, he noticed something. A faint tone, like a hum, buried beneath Cole's last sentence. He amplified it. It wasn't static. It was a frequency. When mapped through analysis, it formed a pattern, coordinates, a location. A stretch of road just outside Daytona Beach. He drove before dawn. The road led to an abandoned gas station, swallowed by weeds and silence. The front windows were shattered. Inside, graffiti covered every surface. Chaotic lines, words that made no sense. But in the corner, on the wall behind the counter, Ruiz found something deliberate. A drawing, 2 chess pieces, a king and a knight. Underneath, written in faint red marker, "Not everything that's lost wants to be found." The handwriting matched the letters, the style matched Cole, but something about it was wrong. Rushed, uneven, like it wasn't drawn by a calm hand. He scanned the room. Dust everywhere, no footprints, no signs of life. But near the back door, under a broken tile, he found a small silver flash drive. He pocketed it and left. That night, in the precinct, he loaded the drive onto a secure system. A single file appeared. No title, no metadata, just a date. The same date as the first murder, 15 years ago. He opened it. It was video footage, grainy, black and white. A room. A figure bound to a chair. A second figure standing over them, blurred, indistinct. The sound distorted. Then a voice. Cole's voice, but not directed at the camera. At someone else. "Tell him," Cole said. And the person in the chair looked up, bruised, terrified. Their voice cracked. "Tell who?" Cole stepped forward, and for a moment his face flashed into view. Younger, sharper. "The detective," he said. "He'll find this. He always does." The clip ended abruptly. Ruiz sat in the dark long after it finished. The screen reflected in his eyes, his hands trembling just slightly. Cole had known. He had planted this, knowing Ruiz would follow every thread. This wasn't a clue, it was conditioning. By morning, Jensen found him still at the desk. "You didn't go home?" Ruiz didn't answer. He played the clip again, watching the faint outline of Cole's shadow move across the wall. Jensen frowned. "We've got new leads. Highway cameras, maybe a truck he used to get out. Want me to brief you?" Ruiz shook his head. "No, he's not running." "What then?" "He's teaching." Her confusion deepened. "Teaching what?" Ruiz looked up from the monitor, eyes distant. "How to vanish without leaving." There was a long pause. Then the lights flickered, a brief power surge. When they came back, the monitor was blank. The file, gone. Ruiz stared at the empty screen and for the first time said nothing at all. Outside, the morning news broke another headline. Florida 2010 cold case deepens. Killer may still be inside the state. But Ruiz knew better. Cole wasn't somewhere out there. He was inside the system, inside the investigation, inside every unanswered question. And as Ruiz closed his office door that night, the phone on his desk vibrated once. No ringtone, no ID, just a single message flashing across the screen. Your move, detective. The rain started again, hard and endless. And for the first time, Ruiz didn't know if the game was still about justice, or if justice had become the game. The week after the library incident began with silence and ended with chaos. The department's servers crashed twice in 3 days. The IT division called it a data overload, but Ruiz knew better. Too clean, too precise, too deliberate. Files related to the 2010 murders, gone. Case logs, photos, transcripts, all replaced by a single folder. Inside it, one image, a black chessboard, empty. By Tuesday, whispers had started. Someone inside was leaking information. Evidence from the cold case was showing up on public forums. Photos no one should have had, angles from inside crime scenes that were never released. Jensen stormed into Ruiz's office that morning, laptop in hand. We've got a breach. The system's compromised. Someone's been accessing restricted databases using your credentials. Ruiz looked up slowly. Mine? She nodded. Twice this week. Midnight logins. Same terminal ID, same location tag. The station. But you weren't here. He leaned back silent for a long moment. Show me. She turned the screen toward him. A list of access timestamps, each stamped with his ID number. What files were opened? The victim reports, she said. Every one of them, and your personnel file. Ruiz stared at the screen. The cursor blinked, patient, indifferent. He finally said, Lock me out. Jensen hesitated. Sir, do it. He knew what this was. Cole was inside. Not physically, not yet, but digitally, systematically. Every keystroke, every file, every security camera became another instrument in his orchestra. That night, Ruiz stayed late again, reviewing physical records. The only thing that couldn't be erased remotely. He kept the evidence boxes stacked high, each one a relic of another decade. The hum of the fluorescent lights above him buzzed like insects. At 2:14 a.m., the lights flickered, then went dark. Emergency power kicked in. Red glow flooded the room. The computer screens across the office flickered back to life, all showing the same thing. A chessboard, one move made, pawn to e4. Ruiz stared at it, motionless. Then his desk phone rang once, just once. He lifted the receiver, silence. Then, faintly, the sound of typing. He spoke quietly. Where are you? No answer. Just the rhythm of keys tapping. Then a whisper. Closer than you think. The line went dead. He stood there in the dark, the red lights pulsing across the walls, and realized that Cole had breached something far worse than data. He'd breached trust. By morning, the building felt infected. Officers exchanged cautious glances. Conversations stopped when Ruiz entered the room. The Internal Affairs Unit arrived, unannounced, demanding access to his files. They searched his office, his car, his home. Protocol, the lieutenant said flatly. You know how this looks. Unauthorized access, destroyed evidence, a meeting with a suspect off record. Ruiz said nothing. He just watched as they packed his laptop, his badge, his service weapon, into sealed bags. By evening, his desk was empty. Outside, reporters swarmed. Detective Ruiz suspended amid investigation leak, the headlines shouted. Cold case detective under scrutiny after suspect escape. Cole had turned the entire system against him, weaponized the bureaucracy. Every fingerprint Ruiz left behind became a trap. Every security measure, a blade turned inward. He spent the night in his apartment, a small, dim place with walls that hummed from the rain outside. The clock ticked unevenly. Somewhere in the distance, a siren rose, then faded. Ruiz opened his personal laptop, disconnected from the network. He checked the files he'd backed up manually, the only ones he still trusted. But even there, in a folder labeled Personal Notes, he found something new. A document, untitled, created that morning. He opened it. Inside, a single sentence. Trust is the first casualty. He sat back, staring at the words until they blurred. Then his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Check the news. He turned on the TV. The broadcast showed grainy footage of a man leaving a police evidence lockup the previous night, wearing a hood, face obscured. The caption read, Security breach under investigation. Suspect believed to have stolen classified materials. The timestamp showed 2:14 a.m., The same moment the lights had gone out in the precinct, the man in the footage was about Ruiz's height, about his build, and the badge clipped to his belt was his. He turned the volume down slowly. Cole wasn't just haunting him now, he was replacing him. By morning, Ruiz's name trended statewide. Internal Affairs froze his pension, his accounts, his clearance. Every contact he'd ever worked with stopped answering. The system had closed its gates. He drove to Jensen's house that afternoon. She opened the door cautiously, relief and fear mixed on her face. Jesus, Ruiz, they're saying, I know what they're saying. You shouldn't be here. They've got you under surveillance. He stepped inside, voice low. Then let them listen. He placed a small USB drive on her table. Cole's been in our network for weeks, maybe months. He's inside the precinct, the database, the entire investigative grid. Jensen stared at the drive. You can prove it? Not yet, Ruiz said. But I can find where he entered. How? He looked at her, tired but focused. By letting him think he's already won. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. You're going rogue. I'm doing my job, he said. The only way left to do it. That night, Ruiz used an old field laptop, one never connected to department servers, and began tracing the digital footprints Cole had left. The patterns were strange, recursive, looping through inactive accounts and dead firewalls. But beneath the noise, he found something. A signature, a code that shouldn't exist. It linked back to an internal user, a badge number. He froze when he saw it. Jensen. He stared at the screen, the cursor blinking beneath her ID. It made no sense. The access timestamps matched moments when she'd been with him, when she couldn't have been at a terminal. Unless... His phone buzzed again, another message. Pawn to E5. He looked back at the chessboard image that had appeared on his screen again, unprompted. The two moves now complete, his pawn mirrored by another. Cole was playing through them both. He closed the laptop, stood up, and moved to the window. The rain had stopped. The city below was quiet. Too quiet. In the reflection of the glass, he could see himself, and behind him, the faint, blinking light of the laptop as another window opened by itself. Lines of code began to scroll, fast, endless. Then words formed, letter by letter. You trusted her. Now what? Ruiz didn't turn around. He just watched the reflection, his own face pale in the glass. Outside, thunder rolled again, but softer this time, like something waiting to break. He whispered to the empty room. This isn't your system anymore, Cole. And from the laptop, the text changed one last time. It never was. The screen went black. Ruiz stood there, surrounded by the hum of silence, the faint glow of city lights, and the understanding that the cold case was no longer about a killer. It was about control, and the fact that the line between law and lawless had been digitally erased. And somewhere in the circuitry, Cole was still watching. He vanished before sunrise. No note, no trace. Just a deactivated phone and an empty apartment with the curtains drawn tight. By the time Internal Affairs returned with a warrant, Ruiz was already a shadow moving through the industrial sprawl of northern Florida. Truck yards, cheap motels, diners where nobody asked names. He paid in cash, carried nothing digital except a cracked burner and a wristwatch whose second hand had stopped years ago. The city didn't miss him. The department pretended not to. The news cycle turned, but in the background, threads were being pulled. Encrypted signals, missing archives, a silent tug-of-war inside the state's data grid. And somewhere inside that labyrinth, Ruiz moved like a ghost. He started with the old files, paper, not pixels, microfilm reels from the courthouse basement, yellowed arrest logs from the early 2000s. Each name led to another. Each dead end formed a pattern. Cole hadn't just been one man working alone. He was connected. A lattice of identities, contracts, shell addresses, all pointing toward something larger. A network hidden behind the facade of abandoned properties and municipal maintenance contracts. The first break came from a single security camera, an analog system left behind in an old storage depot. Ruiz spliced the tape manually, winding it on a portable reel in the dim orange light of a motel lamp. On the footage, blurred by static, a figure moved across the frame. Tall, deliberate, carrying a case identical to the ones used by forensic units. The timestamp, 2 days after the library encounter. Ruiz froze the frame. The silhouette's gait was unmistakable. Cole. But there was something else in the shot. A truck parked nearby, logo partially visible. Apex Municipal Services. A defunct company dissolved in 2015. Ruiz cross-checked old business filings. The registered owner? A shell corporation tied to a data storage subcontractor the department had once used. Cole hadn't broken in. He'd bought his way inside. By midnight, Ruiz was inside the ruins of that depot. The air reeked of mold and diesel. Crates stacked to the ceiling, each marked with serial numbers from police evidence lots. Stolen, rerouted, cataloged again under false inventory codes. He opened one. Inside, drives, dozens of them, labeled with case numbers, dates, initials of officers long retired. On the lid of the next crate, a message carved by knife. Checkmate requires 2 players. He exhaled slowly. No cameras, no witnesses. He began pocketing drives, photographing labels, every movement calculated. Then, a faint click. Metal on metal. He turned. A light blinked from across the room. A motion sensor. Not police grade, Cole's. Ruiz killed his flashlight and dropped behind a crate. Silence. Then footsteps. Measured, slow, echoing across the concrete. He waited, breath shallow. The steps stopped near the far wall. A voice drifted through the dark. Calm. "Detective, you really don't know when to resign." Cole's voice, close. Ruiz stayed still, no movement. "You think you're taking back control?" Cole said. "But you're still inside my map. Every path you follow, I drew at first." A pause. Then a small sound. A match striking. A flare of orange light illuminated Cole's face for a fraction of a second. He wasn't smiling. He looked tired. Almost human. "I told you once," Cole continued. "We mirror each other. You went off-grid because I did. You erased yourself because I taught you how." Ruiz didn't respond. Cole flicked the match aside, the flame dying mid-air. "There's a server in that crate behind you. You'll find every file you lost, every secret they buried. You'll even find what you came for, the original videos, the ones they never logged." Ruiz slowly rose, weapon drawn but lowered. "Why?" Cole's voice softened. "Because I'm done playing this version of the game. The next one needs a new board." "What board?" "The system itself," Cole said. "You've seen it. Corruption, compromise. They'll bury this like they buried the others. You can expose it, if you're willing to burn the whole thing down." Lightning flashed outside, slicing through a gap in the roof. For a heartbeat, Ruiz saw him. Calm, still, eyes reflecting the light like glass. Then darkness swallowed him again. The door slammed. Ruiz lunged forward, flashlight on. Empty, only dust and crates. The echo of footsteps receding down the corridor. He searched the crate Cole had mentioned. Inside, among the drives, a single envelope, handwritten. "The truth belongs to whoever survives it." He stuffed it into his jacket and left. By the time dawn broke, he was driving south along the coast, the horizon a smear of silver. On the passenger seat, the drives buzzed faintly, encrypted but alive, humming like veins of trapped current. At a rest stop, he plugged one into his laptop. Files spilled open, scanned memos, hidden correspondence between high-ranking officials, evidence of falsified records, manipulated case reports stretching back a decade. The cold case wasn't an outlier. It was a pattern. Cole hadn't created the chaos. He'd discovered it and exploited it until it became art. Ruiz stared at the screen, realization sinking in. The murders, the messages, the breaches, all of it had been camouflage for something deeper, a structural infection. Cole's final act wasn't to kill or vanish, it was to expose. But the files were dangerous. They implicated names that still held power. Judges, chiefs, entire divisions. Uploading them would ignite a political wildfire. He shut the laptop. The world outside was quiet. Cars passed, faceless. The ocean hissed somewhere beyond the dunes. Ruiz leaned back, exhausted, eyes on the gray sky. Cole had given him the match, but lighting it meant turning the system to ash, and himself with it. He looked at the envelope again. Inside, a small photograph, black and white, torn from a surveillance feed. It showed a room he didn't recognize. A man seated in front of multiple monitors. On one of the screens, his own face, captured live. Ruiz turned in his seat, nothing behind him but empty road. He looked back at the photo, on the bottom scribbled in pen, This is where the story ends, or begins. The rain started again, light at first, then harder, rhythmic, relentless. Ruiz closed his eyes. The drives hummed quietly like a pulse. Somewhere, maybe in another building, another state, another system, Cole watched the feed and waited for Ruiz to decide whether justice was still justice when it demanded everything. And as the sky brightened with the first flash of morning, Ruiz started the car. The chessboard wasn't empty anymore. Dawn bled into the city in thin silver lines, the kind of light that makes everything look half real. Ruiz parked outside the precinct for the first time in weeks. His car was coated in salt and dust, his face hollowed by sleepless nights. Inside the passenger seat lay the hard drives, evidence, confession, and weapon all in one. He carried them in through the service entrance, the only door left unlocked this early. The corridors were silent, except for the hum of servers rebooting after yet another crash. The department was still recovering from the breach Cole had left behind. Screens flickered, printers spat out blank pages. Ghosts of data still haunted every floor. Jensen was waiting in the records room. She looked smaller than he remembered, pale under fluorescent light. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I was never gone," Ruiz said. "They'll arrest you. Not if I give them what they want." He set the drives on the table. "Everything. The missing evidence, the original files, and the system Cole built through us." She stared at them, uncertain. "How did you get this?" "He wanted me to have it," Ruiz said quietly. "He thought he'd win by forcing me to choose. So I'm choosing." He opened his laptop, a clean machine disconnected from any network, running on local power only. Then he slid in the first drive. The screen lit up with lines of code, then folders, then the cascade of names and dates. Jensen leaned closer, her breath catching. "These are our case archives, but they're altered," Ruiz nodded. "Cole rewrote history. I'm rewriting it back." He began restoring each file manually, printing paper copies, backing them onto external storage. Each upload took seconds that felt like minutes. Jensen worked beside him, silent, feeding pages into the printer. Outside, the city stirred awake. Inside, the ghosts were being named. By noon, Internal Affairs burst through the door. 3 officers, tense, armed, uncertain. "Detective Ruiz!" the lead one barked. "Step away from the terminal!" Ruiz turned, hands raised. "You'll want to see what's on the screen." They hesitated. The data kept flowing, projected onto the wall. Lists of forged warrants, erased case numbers, chain of custody tampering that stretched across administrations. The lead officer lowered his weapon first. "What is this?" "Proof," Ruiz said. "And closure." He handed over the printed report, still warm from the machine. "Cole's not just a killer. He's a mirror. He showed us what the system already was." Minutes later, command staff filled the room. Captains, lawyers, tech specialists. The air thickened with disbelief. Cameras were brought in. Someone whispered, "Get the press." And just like that, the truth became public. That evening, Ruiz stood behind a podium in the briefing hall he'd once ruled from. Reporters flashed questions like gunfire. "Detective, is the suspect still at large?" "Yes." "Are you saying the department covered up evidence?" "I'm saying the department forgot what evidence means." "Do you know where Cole is now?" Ruiz met their eyes, steady. "Everywhere we let him be." He left before the conference ended, slipping out the back door into the drizzle. Jensen caught up halfway down the steps. "You did it," she said. "They're opening an inquiry. People are resigning." Ruiz gave a faint smile. "Justice, for once. In daylight." She hesitated. "And Cole?" He looked toward the skyline. Cranes, floodlights, endless construction. "He's not built for daylight." They stood there as sirens rose in the distance. Not alarms this time, just the sound of the city breathing again. Later that night, Ruiz drove to the waterfront. The rain had stopped. The air smelled of rust and tide. He opened the envelope one last time. Inside, a single photograph. The same black and white shot Cole had left him. But now the monitors were dark. Only his own reflection remained. He dropped it into the sea. The paper curled, sank, and was gone. His phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. "Check." He smiled faintly. Not a taunt this time. a farewell. He powered the phone off and left it on the dock. Behind him, police lights flickered across the harbor, washing the water in blue. Ruiz walked away, coat collar turned up against the wind, the horizon paling with the first color of morning. In the distance, construction cranes turned slowly, silhouetted like chess pieces against the rising sun. The game was over, or maybe it had just reset.